May I please, sir, just hang on one second. We'd like a group photograph with you. May I please request all the council members to join us on stage for a group photograph, and may I request both the speakers to please join us also for that. Once again, just an announcement. Tea is for 30 minutes. Aap time khud hi dekh lein, and let's join us again. The announcement is up the red staircase and to your right. It is in the marquee, and that's where the tea is. I think perhaps 2 rows might be good, sir. All right. Welcome back from your tea and networking session. I assume by the amount of networking noise that was going on at the marquee outside that a lot of business cards and a lot of good words were exchanged. So that's a wonderful opportunity, and perhaps one of the best things about conferences like these, they bring together like-minded professionals and also professionals who can then exchange and interact with amongst one another. And that's what conferences are all about. In our next presentation, we've got a panel discussion on stage. This panel discussion is a conversation with industry leaders, expectations and perceptions of the 2011 outlook. If you're looking for what are the key factors that will drive growth of your industry next year, how do you expect Pakistan industry to perform in the year 2011? How do you perceive the country's and the industry's growth prospects? And what are your hopes? These are the gentlemen that you need to be listening into. May I please request the moderator for the session, Mr. Fareed Ahmed Khan, who's the CEO of ABL Asset Management, to join me up on stage. Alongside Fareed, could I also request the panelists, Mr. Shahzad Dada, who is the CEO of Barclays Bank Pakistan, Mr. Haroon A. Khan, who is the Managing Director of Pell Group, and Mr. Abdul Aziz, who is the CEO of Ufone. Can you please give our panel a very big round of applause? While the panel settles down and mics up, once again, let me let you know, immediately after the panel, we've got Dr. Ishrat Hussain, followed by Mr. Ruhail Mohammed, and also Sardar Naufal Mahmood, who are going to be talking about different aspects of the CFO, the CIO, the CEO, and good, strong partnerships for good economic prosperity. Also, immediately after the lunch and prayer break, if you look through your agenda, we've got a fantastic presentation on current fraud trends. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the speaker who's come especially to Lahore to make this presentation. It was extremely well received in Karachi. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the speaker a little later. But it's always an interesting account to find out. We talk about integrity, and our young colleague Rabia, if I remember correctly, she asked a question about integrity and honesty and accountability. And if you want to find out about these things, the speaker right after lunch break is the person that you need to be listening into. Fareed, if you're all set, over to you then.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you to the panel discussion on conversation with industry leaders, expectations and perceptions of 2011 outlook. First, my panel members will enrich us with their views on how they see this year panning out, and after that we will open the discussion for question and answers. As before us, Mr. Azhar Ali of Tetra Pak rightly said about the change, that it is the only constant in today's world. And given the unpredictable and volatile nature of our country, some of the conclusions that we may draw might be outdated by the time you leave this room. But nevertheless, let's give it a shot. Now, most of us are confronted with the challenge of forecasting key variables for next year and then incorporating them in budgets, targets, key performance indicators, etc. Now, 2011 arrived on the back of 3 consecutive years of very anemic GDP growth of just 3% per annum, which is quite low even by our own modest standards. Against this backdrop, as we try to conjure up the outlook for the next 12 months, a lot of contradictory data rains down on us. Now, let's look at some of these contradictions. For example, inflation rate in Pakistan remains one of the highest in the region. But on the other hand, rupee is very stable, external accounts are quite healthy, and foreign exchange reserves are at their highest levels. National savings at slightly over 10% is one of the lowest that has been in a decade. And do you know that Pakistan's domestic debt, which is now at about 5.3 trillion rupees, is now more than the entire deposits of the banking system. Now, this can't be good for interest rates and liquidity. But even in these trying times where we see turmoil in Middle East and Far East is not performing that well, we see foreign portfolio investments coming in the country, and that has been one of the brighter spots in our economy over the past year or so. So what do businesses and financial planners make out of these contradictions? Which variables to focus on and which issues to consider as we make our budgets and presentations, board presentations for next year? My fellow panelists will soon offer their views on these issues, but on my part, I've jotted down a few areas which I feel could form the rock bed of any discussion and thinking that we may have on this issue. The first is inconsistent and at times unfriendly government policies. Now, who would have thought that our corporate tax rate this year will be more than 35% when we were making our budgets for last year? Energy shortages, which have been haunting us for the past few years. How many industries suffer outages and the cost of generating and this power as well as the lost output that we have to bear every year. Then the redistribution of purchasing power from the urban to the rural economy. Yes, the inflation and taxes have reduced the purchasing power in urban areas, but we see a resurgence in demand in the rural economy, and businesses can only ignore this trend at their peril. Law and order, and I probably need not elaborate on this, but apart from the usual way that we look at law and order, you just think about how the poor law and order situation in, for example, Balochistan is affecting our exploration activity and how it affects the energy supplies. So everything is interlinked here. Onerous and at times convoluted taxation regimes, which is taxing the already taxed, and heavy reliance on indirect taxes, which is quite negative for consumption and as well as inflationary. Now, with these comments, I will now look at my final panelists for their opening comments. I first invite Mr. Abdul Aziz to give his opening remarks. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. As we all are sort of from the finance faculty, and the challenge that we face is we have to come up with a P&L, revenue and expenses. And for most of the businesses, including our business in telecom, everything that can go wrong is going wrong these days. When I look at the revenue side, it's a mix of, if we have inflation, that has a negative impact on the purchasing power of our consumers, which you all know is no more the elite class, it's the general public on the street who are using our mobile phones. So that's one challenge. Because of the security situation, the influx of capital has slowed down. As a result, there are no more businesses or new businesses are coming in. That again has a negative impact on our revenue side. When it comes to cost, may it be interest rate, may it be devaluation, may it be the fuel cost or the security cost, everything that you can take is going wrong. But despite all this,